Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. Dada, with your 2026 AEW Redemption Not So Instant Analysis. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are here Monday, less than 24 hours removed from the conclusion of AEW Redemption, but certainly not here immediately after the show went off the air. We love to give you instant analysis podcasts for premium live events from WWE, major pay-per-views from AEW. Unfortunately, when some of these shows happen Sunday, even if it was a little bit earlier start time than usual, I had a lot of work considerations, and then the workday, of course, starts on Monday. So Silver King did not have the time or opportunity to sit down and tape this podcast for you instant analysis style. At the same time, we wanted to make sure you had full analysis from the event before AEW Dynamite on Wednesday as the road to AEW All In officially begins. As we get into this episode, allow Silver King off the top to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. On YouTube, you can listen to the show. You can watch full-length video interviews. You hit the link on our profile. You can join our free Slack channel, talk about wrestling all week long. You can subscribe to the show, hit up some other links as well. Find us on social media at Getting Overcast. We're not going to really waste any time getting into it. Let's talk AEW Redemption, the first ever version of this pay-per-view for the company. It was a significant card in terms of top to bottom amount of matches that were presented. It went nearly 5 hours, the main card itself, as is tradition here with AEW. And we're going to go ahead and break down every single match, what happened bell to bell, truncated fashion, of course, because we're doing this the day after. We're going to give you thoughts, projections moving forward to AEW All In. And at the end of the show, we will review our pre-show expectation grade and also give you a final grade for AEW Redemption. Now, we normally start where these shows end, which is the main event, but there's actually a precursor here because the number one contender for the AEW Championship at All In, Will Ospreay, was involved in a tag team match alongside Jon Moxley against the Young Bucks with nothing on the line here. And this was one of the first matches on the show. I'll also note anything that happened on the Go Home Collision on Saturday that directly relates to Redemption, we will cover here. Everything else we will tackle this coming Thursday on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. So on Collision, the Bucks beat Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta to go home. The other Death Riders attacked, so Cage and Cope saved. Ospreay then hit a drive-by hidden blade before Mox hit a paradigm shift ringside. Ospreay had his sweats tucked into his crew socks. He looked like a child getting ready for bed while acting depressed that someone had put his toys away early. I'm sorry, that's literally what I thought about immediately seeing him. It was not a good look at all. In terms of the pay-per-view, this was second on the card, a step down energy-wise from the opener, which was a ladder match. The Death Riders entrance was kind of cool, utilizing a mirror. There was a maddening sequence where Mox took and properly sold, to his credit, a 450. But while he was doing that, Nick completely no-sold a 450 from Ospreay, who in turn no-sold a Canadian Destroyer from Matt. Precisely the type of absurdity that takes me out of a match, especially while Tony Schiavone is screaming about it being great and Nigel McGuinness is ham-fisting in, "This is where the best wrestle."
Are you fucking kidding me?
Ospreay saved a weak BTE trigger cover with hidden blade. Then he hesitated, bludgeoning Nick with a forearm, so Mox tagged himself in for a stomp and a bulldog choke. Mac accidentally superkicked Marina Shafir. Nick took 2 paradigm shifts and a Death Rider. But Mox chose not to cover because the goal was not to win the match. Mox pushed the referee down, did not get disqualified for that, brings a chair in the ring. Ospreay stole it away. He got super kicked in the face and sold it more than he sells others' finishers, Ospreay. It was a chair. And then Mox no-sold the BTE trigger by flicking double birds like he was Darby Allin after crashing his skateboard. And then I shit you not, he took a grand total of 14 super kicks, 12 in succession, before going down and taking the fall. I think Nick pinned him. The Bucks needed this win to reestablish them as number one contenders for the tag team titles. That is what we expected to happen here. We talked about it on the Ultimate Preview. And there was a decent story element too, with Ospreay somehow reaching his limit of being a tweener by not wanting to hurt the Bucks, who he had feuded with literally just months ago. Meanwhile, days earlier, he was happy to deliver, 20 forearms to the back of a friend's head without any signs of remorse. Make that make sense. The problem was there was no storytelling between Ospreay and Mox after the bell. Cameras just cut away to the next match. The fighting spirit stuff was a joke. The compilation of everything was weird. Nick selling a head injury was odd and unnecessary, especially because he kicked out of a stomp and they didn't further any storyline with it through the end of the show. The lack of rule keeping by the referee made this ridiculous as usual with no tagging. 3.5 stars B. Can we also reiterate how they keep trying to tell us that Ospreay, who by the way goes by the nickname Aerial Assassin, this guy does not have killer instincts. And he needed the writers and Mox to instill that in him. And he's willing to kill a jobber, a guy he knows, and other guys that he knows that he's fought the last few weeks. But he won't do it to a Buck of all people. Again, a team he was feuding with just a couple months ago. And didn't Ospreay already do this with Don Callis' family too? How is this the build for the main event challenger on the year's biggest show? That's the question I was asking when this match ended. Ospreay later backstage explained he didn't want to take advantage of Nick's history of head trauma, which is why he pulled off late in the match. Mox confronted, so Will confirmed that he wasn't there to kill anyone. Mox yelled that they're pro wrestlers and Ospreay doesn't get to pick and choose when he gets to be aggressive, which is true. Mox said if Ospreay won't pull the trigger, he will. Reminder, Mox is not in this title match, at least not yet. And still, no reason has been provided as to why he is so focused on helping Will and yet so obsessed with the concept of Ospreay succeeding while becoming a killer and winning a title that he once lorded over for an entire year, literally last year. The best thing about this segment was Mox just speaking. He is still a great, entirely believable promo, but contextually, this was incredibly frustrating. And it led into the main event, the AEW Championship on the line. Kenny Omega defending against Kevin Knight. Knight attacked before the bell. Their gear was extremely similar color-wise, a purple and a blue. That was annoying. Omega hit a Poison Rana and V-Trigger plus a Snapdragon on the announce desk. And it felt at times like he was kind of just playing with his food, except for the fact that the match went 25 minutes, which leads one to wonder how much time Ospreay is going to need to beat him. I'm guessing that's going to go 45 to 60 at this rate. They had a rough sunset flip powerbomb over the ropes before a Liger bomb and V-Trigger. Knight did his Tree of Woe coast to coast before misdirecting with both titles hitting a Uranagi on Omega into the TNT for a false finish. Omega ultimately caught him leaping with a V-Trigger, and he hit One Winged Angel to retain as expected. This was ultimately the match of the night from an in-ring standpoint. It was less of a coming out party for Knight than I thought. It was more of an establishment of Omega as champion. But for that to have been effective, he needed a more legitimate and deserving opponent. I'm not sure Knight could have done much better, especially considering the goal was not to go out there and put on a big show main event, but rather a solid match preceding a closing segment that's specifically built for All In. I went 4.25 stars A for this. So the Death Riders attacked Omega after the bell, with Mox and Shafir watching from ringside. The Bucks tried but failed to save. Apparently, Jack Perry isn't truly with them because he was nowhere to be found. Ospreay ran in to prevent Claudio from mashing Omega's head wrapped in a chair, screaming for Mox to stop them. Wheeler Yuta pulled him off like Pac previously did in the situation with Yuta and Bryan Danielson. That way Claudio could do it. But Will still stopped him and then swung the chair wildly to clear the ring of all the riders. Commentary said he wants Kenny at his best, which was hysterical because that is said in like every major AEW feud. Mox came in to confront Ospreay with Omega convulsing behind them. He aggressively went forehead to forehead with Will, trying to get in his head. He pulled out the plastic bag, wanting him to asphyxiate the champion, just like Danielson, because that's a callback we want. That's something we want to remember. Ospreay huffed and puffed like he was going to do it, but ultimately he tried to tear the bag apart. But he required 3 different attempts to do it because he was holding it at the base. He needed to hold it from the sides. Then he decked Mox in the face, dodged 4 riders who ran in to attack him, and then took off Yuta's head with a hidden blade. Fans briefly chanted for him as everyone scurried away. Omega picked up the bag as Ospreay held the title out for him to grab. It was a really odd moment. Then they shook hands. Ospreay gripped the hand hard. Omega convinced him they should celebrate together, which they did on the ropes. So that way, Omega could pull Ospreay down from the ropes and hit One Winged Angel, throwing the plastic bag at him to end the show. Now, this was a direct callback, that finishing move, to something Omega once did to AJ Styles when he took over Bullet Club in Japan. It was almost a shot-for-shot remake. I'm not sure if that was a heel turn or more about Omega not letting himself get got, but it should provide an opening on Wednesday for Mox to tell Ospreay he's right, and then Omega proved that Ospreay needs to be a killer to win the title. But again, that's something that should be inferred because it's a stadium main event match for the main title. Ospreay is a character who has been a major level champion all over the world. He should not need Mox to put him in the right frame of mind going into a major title match. If this winds up being the blow-off to Ospreay and the Death Riders and their part disappears, then the whole deal with Mox to this point will have been even more frustrating than we stated previously, especially considering the really odd, unexplained motivations. Ospreay was already a babyface before this started. He's not any more of a babyface now, regardless of whether Omega turned heel in that moment, if you believe it, which is not how I read it. Omega saw this dude holding the plastic bag, considering using it on him, and he gave him just desserts for the thought. You shouldn't even be thinking about doing something like that to me. If you do, this is what you're going to get. And this is why I so steadfastly wanted Ospreay MJF to be the all-in main event. Crystal clear babyface, crystal clear heel, arguably the top two guys in the promotion in terms of the ones that AEW wants to build around going forward. They move the title over to Omega. It's going to get you a better work rate match with Ospreay. Not that MJF can't do that, but Ospreay Omega is special. We understand. And they want that in Wembley instead of going with the storyline. And they're trying to tell us that this other storyline exists with Mox. And it's not that it doesn't exist. It's just really thin. And the commentary I see around it is this is some momentous angle and it's the best thing in wrestling in 2026. And I'm watching it week to week and I'm like, it's just not. Like in any way, I'm not saying they're not trying. They are. They're trying to do something. The payoff to the Mox Death Riders part of this better work, and it better not just be what we saw here at Redemption. We're going to tackle these two matches together. The Women's Championship, Tekla defending against Willow Nightingale. The TBS Championship, Hikaru Shida defending against Maya World, because on Collision, Tekla and Shida beat Willow and Maya in a mixed feud match to end the show. World took the fall after a kendo stick shot and a spear. While the women's matches were two of the three shortest at Redemption, each of them got around 16 minutes, which is more than enough time, so I give a lot of credit where it's due in both cases. Women's Championship was the co-main event, which was nice positioning. Willow missed a top rope moonsault but prevented Tekla's spear, countering into a version of the Dr. Bomb that led to a rope break, aided by Sky Blue right in the referee's face. She didn't get ejected. So Nightingale took her down, Sky, with a Dr. Bomb ringside, only to eat a spear coming back in. However, when Tekla went for the stomp, Willow countered with a backslide and won the title. Real nice pop for Nightingale's win. Downer of an end to Tekla's strong run with the title. I predicted this on the preview because it seemed obvious AEW would not go heel versus heel at All In. Figured there was a chance it would get made into a triple threat. And that is still a possibility. But that was not the immediate indication by the graphic, and that's not the only time it happened during this show. It's kind of strange to go back to the well with Mercedes Moné and Willow at a major show just like this. I want to say it's their third time fighting. Also, like, where were Julia Hart or any of Willow's girlfriends? Conglomeration came out to celebrate with her immediately after the bell, putting the women's title in a backpack. I continue to find this with Conglomeration to be extremely stupid. Mox hid the title in a briefcase as a heel. They throw it in a backpack rather than display it. Why are you doing that as baby faces? Again, super happy for Willow to get the opportunity. This left a lot to be desired. I wished her victory was more definitive, especially considering the next match we're going to talk about ended similarly. But if you're putting this woman head-to-head with Mercedes at All In, and especially if Mercedes is going to win the title, and we don't know that's going to happen, but if you're going to do that, you want Willow to get a solid, clear win over Tekla, and then you want to double that up with probably one TV title defense between now and that show. 3.5 stars B. TBS title followed the double chain match, which was really unfortunate for them. Maya landed some nice moves, but she completely missed a moonsault she was supposed to land, hitting the front of her head on the canvas. And then she sold the back of her head. It further got ridiculous as fans gave relative golf claps for kickouts of significant moves from Shida, including 3 straight knee strikes and a Falcon Arrow where she got a rope break on like 1.5. Maya ultimately won the title in upset fashion with a fall-away slam bridge. This was a massive step down from the Mercedes match, which just goes to show how much Monet carried her in that one. World was the right winner to pay off her underdog booking in the O, and we predicted as much. I cannot imagine her holding this title for too long. She's clearly not ready for this from a developmental standpoint. She won on her birthday. It was a nice moment for her at the end of a difficult 2 months. 2.5 stars C, real slow, too much sloppiness. By the way, Shida, who was at one point among the best women on this entire roster, now has the shortest reigns in history for both the women's title and the TBS title, each at 25 days. That is how she's booked and treated in AEW, despite actually having personality in addition to in-ring ability. Before we move off the women, Mick Foley interviewed Divine Dominion backstage, and I frankly cannot even believe what happened here. They forced him to sit in a chair so they could tower over him and put themselves over as dominant and superior to every other women's team in history. Somehow, it was up to Foley to mention the Brawling Birds as potential challengers rather than the Birds doing it themselves. Then Dominion told Foley to bow down to them, and he started saying bow wow and barking like a dog while looking up at them. I swear, whoever came up with this, what the hell were you thinking? How the hell did Foley agree to do this segment as presented? It was completely embarrassing. If this happened in WWE, people would be screaming, Vince McMahon's back in creative. Look what the women's division's going to become. This was meant to put them over as intimidating, but they weren't. Not by talking down to a 61-year-old heavyset man who struggles walking. Lena Cross, I've said this before, she's the only person of value in this segment. The paycheck must be good because Foley subjecting himself to this was an absolute shame.
Come on, Oos. It's a joke, right? It's a joke, Oos. You ripping me?
Shame. Shame.
Tag team championship, let's go back to this. Cage and Cope defending against Claudio Castagnoli and Pac. Death Riders attacked before the bell. Pac looks incredibly weird in his new gear, and it's similarly strange that Claudio is still wearing a mask because he was CMLL champion for like 4 months. Unsurprising due to the combined age of the participants. This was incredibly slow and plodding. Cope went through his signatures late, including an Impaler DDT on Claudio into Pac. That was really cool. Riders answered with an assisted neutralizer false finish. And the finish of this match was by far the best part. Christian speared Claudio and then popped up Pac as he was running for a Cope spear out of midair. And of course, they retained the titles. This came with all 4 guys in the ring. Tagging was forgotten about for a while beforehand. Just really mediocre. 3.25 stars B. The Bucks confronted the champions after the bell. Seconds after they got in the ring, a tag team championship graphic for All In hit the screen. Never mind that Nick was selling a concussion an hour earlier and certainly had not been checked out and cleared in kayfabe in that time. Now, perhaps I was incorrect in my assumption that FTR would be back for this match, or perhaps they will expand this as the weeks progress, especially since we all expect Motor City Machine Guns to debut in AEW on Wednesday in Detroit. But that's what makes it so odd that the announcement was done here. I gotta believe this will grow, including more teams and a stipulation before All In. The original thought in my head was a triple threat TLC match. It's not called TLC, with the Bucks, FTR, and of course Cage and Cope. You add Motor City Machine Guns. You could possibly do New Day at All In. They would debut, and you do it like when New Day introduced the Hardys to the WrestleMania ladder match. You could do something very similar, and all of a sudden it's a 5-team ladder match, no DQ, whatever you want to call it. I don't see this getting the job done 2-on-2. Cope and Cage against the Bucks. Chris Jericho fought Tommaso Ciampa in a no-holds-barred match on Collision. Ciampa beat Zachary Wentz, who he fought because he beat another Rascals member in a random match last week. Then he said he's better than Jericho and drew the black part of the Painmaker makeup on his face as cameras kept showing Paul White looking like he was trying to hold in a fart on commentary or something. Jericho took Fairy Tale Ending off the apron through a ringside table early. That could have been the match finish. Ciampa then brought hockey sticks and a trash can into the ring. First, he put on a Boston Bruins jersey. Then he punted a hockey helmet into the crowd. Then he pulled out a tiny plushie of the Montreal Canadiens mascot. He hit it with a stick, did a code breaker to it. I mean, this thing was like fit in his hand. And then he forced the referee to count a fall, which they did. And then Jericho broke the fall to a pop before wrapping a trash can around Ciampa, hitting it with a hockey stick, and kissing the plushie. Jericho, by the way, is a Winnipeg Jets and New York Rangers fan. His dad played for the Bruins, so he had no specific love for the Canadiens, nor hatred for the Bruins, just the home team. But this comedy bullshit all happens in the middle of what had been a blood feud that has already been taken to extremes on TV. And I got mad about Jey Uso's stupid mid-match yeeting. This, it was at least as bad, if not worse.
I hate this. I hate this crap. Stop. Stop with the crap.
Ciampa bladed after taking a bump with thumbstick-covered hockey pucks before Jericho used sandpaper on him. Ciampa broke walls of Jericho with a barbed wire bat, then ate a Death Valley driver off the apron through a barbed wire table. That was a great spot. He responded to getting stabbed in the head with an air raid crash through a mirror propped on chairs. So Ciampa brought in the power drill that they've been teasing. Jericho spit green mist in his face. Then he hit Judas Effect for a false finish. Then he hit Judas Effect with a tack-covered elbow pad that was so low on his forearm, it didn't even come close to connecting. That got another false finish. That led Jericho to grab the power drill and try to use it on Ciampa's head. And the bell just rang. Did the referee call it off? Did Ciampa submit? No idea. The ring announcer didn't tell us, and the referee did not indicate either way with hand gestures. What's interesting is that despite all my criticisms, this match over-delivered to expectation and was probably the best part of the show at the time it ended, even if it was not the best bell-to-bell. I'm at 3.75 stars B+. I can't go higher because of the finish, the comedy spot, and the fact that at 22 minutes, it was at least 5 minutes too long. Plus, just as predicted, this is now Jericho returning to AEW and immediately going over Ricochet and Ciampa in feuds. To what end is that justifiable? Isn't this exactly what we were concerned about and why so many people did not want him to return to AEW? Because he was just going to get into feuds with people and beat them? It's literally what's happening right now. On top of that, now we have seen syringes, plastic bags, attempted drowning, plate glass exploding, mirrors, screwdriver stabbings, a power drill. Was there a saw at one point? I'm convinced AEW is like less than a year away from knives and guns, because what else is there to do? They've already done flamethrowers and shit like that. Like, what if they bring, those like police guns they have that shoot bean bags at people instead of bullets? Like, I'm convinced we're going to see that on an AEW show. And I shouldn't be. International Championship, Kyle Fletcher defending against Bandito. This was considered by many to be the match of the night from an in-ring perspective. It was the longest, 26 minutes. For me, it lacked. They had the same primary color on their gear, which was stupid. Fletcher kicked out of a 21-plex that he basically helped Bandito execute. There was a 30-second delay on a sunset flip powerbomb ringside that reduced the impact and was safer, so that was positive. Then Bandito hit a ringside frog splash off the top rope. I simply do not know how neither guy got hurt on that. At the time I wrote, it was one of the best moves of the night. It was the single best move of the entire show. Fletcher kicked out of that and a shooting star press in succession. Bandito hit an impressive pop-up tornado DDT, and Fletcher got a rope break on that, plus a Spanish-style crossbody. Then he straight kicked out of an X-knee and a second 21-plex for a false finish. Bandito got a similar false finish on a brainbuster and an avalanche Michinoku driver. Fletcher followed with a lawn dart into the middle rope and turnbuckle brainbuster, which completely missed. He didn't hit anything, and that was the finish. I'm at 4.25 stars A. I know some are going to be much higher. The finish brought it down a quarter on its own. The overall booking of the match and Bandito was difficult to understand and buy into. Frankly, I almost went A- here. So the ROH champion, Bandito, who has already lost to MJF for the AEW title, Swerve Strickland in the Owen, and Mox for the Continental title all this year, not only loses to Fletcher at a lower level than all of those guys, he sees Fletcher kick out of not one but two of his finishers and his huge signature move. This should have been Andrade El Idolo's match and victory. We'll talk more about that in a bit. It was literally shoved on this pay-per-view for pure work rate reasons and nothing more, with a lacking setup and basically zero match story. So let's talk about the national championship. Mark Davis defending against Andrade El Idolo. Andrade got an updated entrance that worked visually. It was not my preferred vibe for him. The song was a huge downgrade. They're somewhat turning him into a catchphrase and kind of running it into the ground, using the women for his gimmick rather than focusing on him being an awesome wrestler with a great physical aesthetic. Dudes like him should never walk down to the ring in a heavy black t-shirt. He did the feint back elbow at the bell for a false finish, then paused for a planted fan photo. He spit someone's drink in Davis's face because in AEW, you spit on people. Much later, Davis just watched as Andrade took a full minute to climb onto the top rope and hit a moonsault outside over the ring post. It was incredibly impressive. It was kind of ridiculous at the same time. Andrade ultimately won the title in sudden fashion out of a counter, hitting the feint elbow and the DM to take the championship, I believe his first singles title in AEW. Interestingly, this was my most disappointing match on the show. I thought these guys were going to tear the house down. The work was solid, don't get me wrong. It was relatively unspectacular, 3.5 stars B. The criticism here is exactly what I said on the preview, the booking decision. It's horrific. Andrade spent the entire year putting himself in position for an AEW title match. He's beaten top contenders, gone wire to wire with others, gotten screwed over a couple of times when he's appeared to be in contention, got himself over, exited Don Callis' family by turning on MJF, who was the champion at the time. And he's rewarded for all of that with the least important men's singles title in the company. 5th out of 5. This guy should have won the international title from Fletcher, or he should have won the number one contendership ladder match to get that match with Fletcher at All In. That, at least, international is ranked 2nd of 5 in the company. Instead, he's slumming it with a strap that appears to have been created just to get gold over someone's shoulder because the roster is too big. Extremely weak booking, poor creative, unless he's going to merge a bunch of these titles into one. And I don't think that's happening.
So dumb.
We also had Jack Perry, Beast Mortos, Commander, Mike Bailey, Nick Wayne, and El Clone fighting in a ladder match to become number one contender for the International Championship. Talk about a murderer's row. On Collision, Bailey cut a promo reminding that he's from Montreal, which would have led to me changing my prediction had I known that before Thursday's show. This had nothing behind it. Wayne qualified by beating AR Fox on the show, as did Clone by beating Leo Rush. Absolutely crazy. This is the number 2 men's singles title in the entire promotion, and this is the field in a ladder match for a number 1 contender. It's unfathomable considering the strength of this roster. Perry also cut a promo on the show mocking CM Punk by talking about an opportunity falling out of the sky that was punching up to such a significant degree it was laughable. Wayne then came in cutting the same promo as he always does, promising to hurt Perry. Remember, Jack beat him less than 2 weeks ago. That was not a qualifier. Nick got into the match anyway. This should have been the group for the national title contendership, not international, which is crazy because this got more time on the go-home show, the build for this match, than anything else. I'm going to assume this started on 0 hour since it was in progress when I started the main card. Bailey did a moonsault off the top of a tall ladder on stage. There were obvious, exciting high spots and some messy ones too, including a recreation of the recent WWE TLC spot with multiple tables outside the ring and then one move after another into them. Wayne did a 450 off the middle of a ladder through a table ringside. Perry did a Canadian Destroyer over the top of a ladder into another propped in the turnbuckles. That cleared the deck for Mortos to lay himself atop a ladder over the middle turnbuckle. Yes, I said he laid himself on top of it, so Bailey could do his double knees finisher and grab the contract. It was the only result the crowd wanted. It was the obvious booking in retrospect after learning he was from Montreal. The crowd helped this match significantly. And a multi-man ladder match to open a pay-per-view, it's always a good idea. This was heavily overdone. It was a total spot fest. The timing was off in many cases. And while some of the individual spots were fantastic, as a whole, it never really got me to the edge of my seat, which is what I want from a match like this. It just never really flowed. It seemed like they were more concerned about getting their shit in rather than putting something cohesive together. Mortos was the MVP. Wayne flashed a couple of times. We'll see if he's even booked after this. 3.75 stars B+. Of course, from a booking standpoint, it is incredibly silly and poor that Speedball has lost a world title match in May, a TNT title match in June, a national title match in July, and now he's challenging for the international title. 4 different championship matches in as many months is absurd, and it's straight up dog shit booking, especially considering the order of them and Bailey being 0 for 5 in singles over that span. So this guy who has lost, what did I just say? 3 title matches, and is 0-5 total, is now getting another championship match. Again, Bandito lost 3 title matches already this year. Got another one on this show. We talked about this with Kyle O'Reilly when he debuted. He got like 8 different title matches and lost all of them for singles championships. And this is mind-numbing booking, folks. And lastly here, Jay White and Juice Robinson fought the Dogs in a double chain match. Dogs attacked before the bell as if that would give them some type of advantage in a no DQ match. The chain was so thin and noisy, it was tough to understand why they didn't use something more substantial. And there's a reason why double chain matches don't happen, because it's clunky and the shit got mixed together all the time, all tangled up and stuff. The best spot was only seen in the background. Juice pulled Clark Connors off the ropes into the steel steps with a thud. The director didn't get it as the primary shot. He didn't show a replay. Garcia and Yuta interfered, so the rest of Bang Bang Gang saved as expected. David Finlay eventually beat Robinson with a shillelagh shot. White looked like he got dropped straight on his head during this match. I think he got his arms over to block some of it, but it was super scary. And had he not, like, that could have been real bad. Like, end match stretcher out of the arena bad. This match was horrendous. It was easily the worst of the night. A regular tag team or no DQ match would have worked a lot better. 1.25 stars D. That is how poor this match was. Top to bottom, bell to bell. So that wraps up AEW Redemption, a show that, largely disappointed and fell below expectations, which were already relatively low, considering it felt like this was just thrown together and this pay-per-view was entirely unnecessary on the road to AEW All In. They sold 7,000 seats in a 20,000 seat venue, and it sounded that way also. For a wrestling city like Montreal, that's got to be disappointing. Even if it would have been a solid number had they done 7,000 in like Portland or something stateside, at least you could say, oh, yeah, we sold most of an arena, or maybe even sold out an arena. They sold 1/3. They blocked off the whole 300 level and like half of the lower level. It just felt that way. And it felt like the show was thrown together. And you went into these matches. I don't know if we batted 1,000 on the Ultimate Preview, but if I didn't bat 1,000, I missed no more than 2. And one of them was the ladder match. Had I realized Bayley was from Montreal, I would have picked him. But I mean, it was incredibly predictable. Some stuff moved forward, but not much. The other matches that were announced could have easily happened on Dynamite. And ultimately, it was just largely a disappointment. Now, on the preview show, we gave this a pre-show expectation grade of B+, 88 out of 100. As you can tell, I am far below that number. Man, it's tough to be too positive about it. Both women's championship changes were exciting for them as individuals. Did they make a lot of sense, like storyline wise? And did they make All In better by changing those titles? For one of them, maybe. For the other, definitely not. So like the newsworthy elements coming out of the show only mattered so much. Everything else was extremely expected. Andrade winning the title, it's nice, but we already told you it's like the least important title in the company. Jericho beat Ciampa, which is a whole womp womp. And yeah, they did have some build for Ospreay and Omega, but Mox is a massive part of that. And we're still kind of wondering why that's the case. And even that went really long. It took forever to transpire. And you kind of ended the show and it was like, oh, Omega's on top and Ospreay took a finishing move that he's taken before. It's not like he got the shit kicked out of him or anything like that. So I'm going to go 83 out of 100, the lowest B I can. And look, the match quality was solid. There were some really nice bouts, but we've come out of other AEW pay-per-views before where we've talked about the show not being much of anything besides high quality work rate. And I've given it B+, A-, or even A's in some situations. But this didn't even have the work rate. I mean, you're going to have people tell you that they loved the Young Bucks match and Fletcher Bandito is a match of the year contender, which it was not. Or Kevin Knight showed out really well, which he did. But like, we've had cards that AEW has produced that have had 3 to 4 matches better than the best match on this card. So if the work rate didn't save them and storytelling didn't really get us there outside of the main event, and the title changes were rather womp womp, even though I was happy for all the people who won them, then pretty much every element here fell below what were already low expectations. So yeah, that's where I sit, 83B for AEW Redemption. And we will talk a lot more about AEW this Thursday on the podcast. That is our normal NXT and AEW episode. But before we get to that, earlier in this week, starting on Tuesday, we will have full coverage of WWE SummerSlam 2026. We have yet to determine what the order of operations are going to be in terms of previewing SummerSlam, whether we're going to do 2 separate episodes for night 1 and night 2, like we did for WrestleMania this year. That was a smashing success. Or whether we're just going to do one massive WWE episode, or perhaps we do, catch up for everything that happened in WWE. And then separately, we do an ultimate preview for all 12 matches in a single episode. That has not yet been determined, but all of it will start on Tuesday. That is your next WWE episode. And no matter what happens at the end of the week on Saturday and Sunday, we will have WWE SummerSlam Night 1 and Night 2 instant analysis. So make sure you sign up for the Getting Over Wrestling podcast if you are listening for the first time. And if you want to see, the way we talk about WWE and cover it, and you don't want to wait until this coming Tuesday's show, you want to get a taste of the penultimate week of build for WWE SummerSlam, hit our archives, because every single episode we have ever taped is available, more than 900 of them, as we approach episode 1000, right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. On the way out, allow the Silver King to remind you that here at Getting Over,
It's all about Defy.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show, and we do have some of those to read this coming Tuesday. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You will get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. On YouTube, you can listen to the show, watch full-length video interviews, hit the link in our profile. You can join our free Slack channel, talk about wrestling with us all week long, subscribe to the show, and much more. Follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. All right, that wraps it up for today. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.